Dennis. Dennis from Brazil.
All right, we're live.
Tagubin, Haumi, Dakiapi, Leam Peltuki, Yushkiana, Pechi Uzapi, Lewatiki El Diomani, Piena Diaglape, Noah, Akito. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Good Medicine Way. We have a really great presentation coming up with the featured sharing of our pastor, Casey Church. I just wanted to welcome all you relatives back to our weekly Monday meetings. I'm very excited to see what's going to be shared tonight. We have many great people to all participate in this, and want to thank the people from YouTube and from Facebook Live and here on the Zoom. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Joe Lopez. Go ahead, Joe, for our land acknowledgement and opening prayer.
Hello, family. I am in Los Angeles, so I'm on the home territory of the Tongva, or the Gabrielino. And Good Medicine Way is on the home territory of the Pueblo, the Selecta Pueblo, and the Apache, the Navajo, and it's kind of a big gathering place. Has been for a long, long time. And so yeah, and I have a pretty simplistic 4 directions prayer for today. So I have some tobacco and I stand and I face the direction of the east, and I give thanks for the gift of tobacco. And I face the direction of the south, and I give thanks for the gift of cedar. I face the direction of the west, and I give thanks for the medicine of sage. And I face north, and I thank you for the gift of sweetgrass. And we smudge with all 4 of our sacred medicines. And we give thanks for this life. And give thanks for our time together tonight. And ask your blessing on our words and our thoughts and our time together. I have another thing, don't I? I can't remember.
Leah says it's after the songs.
Hey, Joe is already trying to get ahead of himself now. Just kidding. But thank you very much for that prayer, Joe, and thank you for offering up smoke for all of us. So that was really great. Let's see. So now we will be handing it over to Leah and Brian Grover for the songs that we'll be playing for this week. So go ahead and take it away, Grovers.
All right, let me get the words up. Do a couple of.
Wasn't there a Muppet called Grover?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Lovable
yeah.
furry in blue.
Hello, everybody. It is I, lovable furry old Grover.
He's my hero.
Today, we will learn the difference between colonial and native.
Before the days of Elmo.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Nice. Right.
As always, the Grovers deliver such a great performance. Oh dear, looks like I accidentally closed my schedule. Give me one moment. But yeah, that was really beautiful. It
Yeah.
feels like every single time we hear you all, you guys get better every single week. But yeah, I love those songs. Let's see, one moment.
Have to get a bigger screen, huh?
Yeah, have my little bears in here with me.
Good dancing back there too.
Yeah. All right. I think it's back to Joe.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and hand it back to Joe for this week on Turtle Island. So go ahead and take it away, Joe.
Thanks. So this week on Turtle Island, there was a massacre at Acama Pueblo by some pretty uncool Spanish guys. And so the story goes with it is that there was a small party of Spanish that got attacked by the Pueblo. And then in retaliation, the army came and killed like 800. And then any of the men, he had cut the rest of their feet off, like 1 foot, as like a sign to the rest of the other pueblos and whoever was left at Acama. And so the rest of the people got put into slavery for 20 years, or I don't think indentured servitude was the way, but like a type of slavery. And after the 20 years, some people came back and rebuilt the Pueblo, and so that's. I did hear that that Spain didn't like that the guy did that, so they convicted him on. I don't remember the charge exactly, but they kind of replaced him with somebody else, and that really wasn't their policy. So they did put a statue of him in New Mexico, and then someone cut his foot off on the statue, but then they put another foot on, so it still has a foot. So anyway, that's what I'm sharing for this week in Turtle Island.
Oh man, that's terrible to hear about. I wish they would have just kept his foot off. He didn't need to get a leg up, okay? Well, yeah, it's very unfortunate. And thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being brave enough to share that. Okay, so now we'll be handing it over to Leah McCoo. We're so glad that she's here with us today to be signing the Lord's Prayer and from the First Nations version. Hopefully we kind of practiced. I mean, I didn't, but hopefully we all did. So. Go ahead, take it away, Leah.
All right, so this week I'm going to offer the first 2 lines for us to learn and then go all the way through. I try to give 1 line to try to bolster us up. So I asked my sign language teacher, I'm going to be presenting this, and I know how to say Great Spirit. You can go ahead and practice that. Great Spirit. But I don't know how to say, oh, Great Spirit. And I said, how do you say that? She said, well, that's not really what it's saying. It's not saying, oh, great spirit. It's saying, oh, great spirit. She says, I don't know. I've never had to sign that. And so I said, okay, so I just have to interpret it with the signs that I know. And so I'm using, which means like, dude. Oh, okay. So you're like, it almost takes your breath away. Oh, great spirit. Our Father from, and then I'm going to go ahead and say heaven, above, because otherwise it would just be above. So above. All right, all together. Oh, great spirit, our Father from above. We honor your name as sacred and holy. Bring your good road to us, where the beauty of your ways in the spirit world above is reflected in the earth below. Provide for us day by day. The elk, I apologize. The elk, the buffalo, and the salmon. The corn, good job. The corn, the squash, and the wild rice. All things we need for each day. Release us from the things we have done wrong. In the same way, we release others for the things done wrong to us. Guide us away from the things that tempt us to stray away from your good road, and set us free from the evil one and his worthless ways. Aho. May it be so. Good job.
Yeah, so this is our sign language for applause. So when you,
It's way longer.
yeah.
Yes, thank you again for showing us how to do that. Hopefully, one of these days we're going to be able to actually keep up with you. I even have my little one over here learning it, so it's good. It's good.
This is ASL.
Okay, okay. That's very cool. Very cool. All right. Thank you very much, Miss Leah McCoo. All right, now we'll be handing it over to Leah Grover for our smoke signals and giveaway. So go ahead and take it away, Leah.
Alrighty, and if anyone has any announcements, which are smoke signals, just put them in the chats here and we will get to them. But the first one here that all the ladies are invited to is every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Yep, we're reading this book here, The Lost History of Christianity, which is going through especially the first millennium of Christianity when it was strong in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, which I definitely didn't learn anything about growing up, so that's extremely enlightening. We're just about to end that. Hopefully in the next month or so, we will be starting braiding sweetgrass. So just let me know if you need that book, or you're free to join us for the end of this also. And let's see, were there any other announcements? Oh yeah, Gene, you want to talk about yours?
Yes. Men's book discussion group is starting this Sunday, January 29th. Uncle Casey's holding up the copy there. Mission and the Cultural Other by Randy Woodley. If you had tuned into or attended the Good Medicine Way gathering last Monday, Uncle Randy was on and gave a really good primer, good introduction, preview of what we're going to be talking about. So this Sunday, January 29th, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. If you are interested, please contact me or contact Leah or Uncle Casey and let them know that you're interested. And I put my email address in the chat box there.
All right, any other?
Sewing 101 at APS?
Oh yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Angie Jones.
It never fails. Phone goes off right when we're gonna ask something.
That's my aunt. Hi, everybody. Got a call from my aunt, so I'll make this short. I wanted to just let you know that we hosted the Sewing 101 for Albuquerque Public School native students last Tuesday, and we had 7 students they were hoping for 8, and we had 7. There were 3 young men and 4 young ladies. So the young ladies are making a ribbon skirt, and the men, one is helping his friend make her skirt. One other young man is going to make a bandana for his dog, and the third young man is going to make an apron for his mother. So I'm just really pleased and thankful that I have this opportunity to help share what I know with the students there at Albuquerque Public School. So I just want to give you an update. Thank you.
Someone has posted to remind about the Wichoni Virtual Family Camp on the 28th. I believe that is this month. So yes, Ray Martell or anyone else who has a link for that or a little ad for that, if you want to put that on the Good Medicine Way Facebook page, that'd be great. Anything else?
Concert!
Oh yeah, talk about that.
Rockin'.
So we're gonna have, so Jonathan Miracle is gonna be doing a couple different shows in the state while he's down here, but on February 18th, he will be here with Glenn Kaiser from Chicago. So any of you old Jesus music folks would probably be familiar with Glenn Kaiser. Part of one of the earliest Christian rock bands, Resurrection Band. But Glenn does a lot of folk and blues and DIY instrument music, and he's just wealth of experience and knowledge, and I really feel like he and Jonathan are kindred spirits, so I'm really looking forward to getting the two of them together. I think the plan at this point is when we do the show is that Glenn will play first, and then we're gonna have some time for he and Jonathan to just kind of have some ad lib jam session together, and then Jonathan will do his show. So it should be a really fun night, and it should be music that you won't be able to hear anywhere else because we're probably gonna come up with some stuff live. And then, do we know
Bill Pagrin will be.
is he coming down
He'll
too?
be joining the crew here, and then that will be Friday night. They'll be heading down, when they arrive, they'll be heading down to Rio Doso, and they're setting up a concert. I believe it's already posted. I think Shirley Estes has already posted that, so we'll share that on our link as well. So Shirley has had the whole group down there before, and it's a big Apache res down there, so there was lots of folks that came. That was good to be with. Then they'll be up here, then we'll starting on Saturday night here.
Yep, yeah, and I think, and they still doing their show at Church Rock on Sunday?
Church Rock, yes.
Yeah, so John and Bill will be going out to Church Rock on Sunday. But Glenn will only be here for the Albuquerque show. So the Albuquerque show will be unique and of the 3 shows that are available. But hey, if you're in the state, go to all 3 shows. Like, what are you gonna do? Make a weekend of it.
Make a weekend of it.
Groupies.
Groupies. Yeah, so that's happening. It'll be go right on. Then we'll do Sunday in Church Rock, and then we'll do Monday. We'll be right here again with us again. So that day we'll probably just have a couple of opening things, and we'll turn it right over to them to do their music and their witnessing that they do during their service. So that's really cool coming up. Yep, I think
Okay.
that's about it. Yeah,
All
right now.
right.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, and then moving over to the giveaways.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you would like to donate to the work of Good Medicine Way, you can go to the top of our Facebook group, and there's a logo for you to click on to donate through PayPal, or you can message me, Leah Grover, if you don't do PayPal, and if there's other ways that would be better for you to donate. That would be great. You can even donate specifically to get Bill Pagaran.
That's right.
Down here. They're raising money for his ticket. And
Note concert.
no concert.
Oh, note, that is.
Note. Make sure you put a note on there that is for that
Yes.
Bill Pagaran concert, or any other needs you're feeling that you want to help out with. We've been giving away a good steady stream of First Nations versions here, and and we bring food on Monday nights for the community, to offer to the community. So different needs if you'd like to help out with those. And I believe that looks like that's about it for today.
Okay, stillness.
It's a really great blessing for those who are able to donate to Good Medicine Way. Be sure to check out the Good Medicine Way Facebook page, because there's a lot of really useful information on there, especially about what happens on Monday nights. So be sure to definitely check that out. So thank you for sharing that, Leah, and everybody else who shared something. Sorry, my little babies are playing over here. All right, so I'll be passing it over to Jamie Betchka for reading Creator's Word, Acts 15, 1 through 20. So go ahead and take it away.
Good evening, Good Medicine Way family. Yes, we are reading from the First Nation version, Acts chapter 15, verses 1 through 20. While small man Paul and son of comfort Barnabas were in stands against Antioch, some men came down from the land of promise, Judea, and began to teach the followers there. They said, unless you have participated in the traditional cutting of the flesh ceremony given by drawn from the water Moses, you cannot be set free and made whole. But small man Paul and son of comfort Barnabas did not agree with them and had a strong argument with them. It was decided that small man Paul and son of comfort Barnabas along with a few others, would go to the message bearers and elders at Village of Peace, Jerusalem, to settle this among them. So, having been sent on their way by the sacred family, they traveled through the land of palm trees, Phoenicia, and high place Samaria. As they traveled, they told how the outside nations had come to faith. This made the hearts of all the followers glad. When they came to Village of Peace, Jerusalem, the message bearers, elders, and the sacred family welcomed them. They told them the stories of all that the Great Spirit had done through them. But some of the sacred family members who belonged to the band of the separated ones, Pharisees, stood up among them to make their voice heard. The outside nations, said the separated ones, Pharisees, must participate in the cutting of the flesh ceremony and be required to follow our tribal law given by drawn from the water, Moses. The message bearers and elders sat in council together to discuss this matter. After much talk and debate, stands on the rock, Peter stood up among them. My fellow members of the sacred family, he said to all, you know that a good while ago Creator chose me to be the one to help the outside nations come to faith by telling them the good story. The knower of hearts made this clear when he gave them the Holy Spirit in the same manner as he did for us. The Great Spirit made no difference between us and them, purifying their hearts when they trusted in him. So why put Creator to the test by putting a burden on their shoulders that neither our ancestors nor we have been able to carry? So then, stands on the rock, Peter finished, we believe it is because of the gift of great kindness from Creator sets free Jesus, the chosen one, that we will be set free and made whole. It is the same for us and them. Silence fell upon all who had gathered there as they listened to Son of Comfort, Barnabas, and small man Paul tell about the wondrous and powerful signs the Great Spirit had done through them when they were with the outside nations. When they were finished speaking, he leads the way, James, stood up and spoke to the gathering. My fellow tribal members, he said, hear what I have to say. One who hears, Simon, has spoken well to remind us how the Great Spirit first showed to us his concern for the outside nations by choosing from among them those who would represent him. This agrees with the words of the prophets from long ago. It is written in the sacred teachings, at that time, I will return and repair the sacred tent of much loved one, David, that has fallen to the ground. I will raise it up from its tattered ruins and mend its tears, so that the rest of humankind may search for the Great Spirit, all the outside nations who have also been chosen to represent me. This is what Creator is saying, for he made these things known long ago. So, as I see it, we should not put stumbling stones in the path of the ones in these outside nations who are turning to the Great Spirit. The message we should send to them is that they should stay away from things offered to evil spirits, from sexual impurity, from the meat of a strangled animal, and from drinking blood.
Now let's go into our newest feature, our newest edition here, Silent Reflection and Stillness Time. The Native American flute music presented by Brian Grover. So go ahead and take it away, Brian.
This camera's on me. And then that camera
Yep.
is on Laura.
Yep.
Thank you so much for that, Brian. It was very beautiful, and I'm really glad that we're able to add this to our moments on Mondays. So thank you for providing us with that moment there. Okay, now I'll be handing it over to Laura Church, who will be introducing our speaker. So go ahead and take it away, Laura.
Thank you.
Where's that?
Can you hear me? Thumbs up, somebody?
There's a thumb.
Okay. I wanted to just take a moment to share with you who Casey is from another perspective. I think it's important to share the background of an individual who is in not only leadership but ministry leadership, so that others have an idea of where they came from and a short snippet of their journey to get them to where they are today. And I think this also helps with relationship building and trust. So I wanted to share those two pictures, but also to share with you more about Casey. And I have a little write-up. Casey is the son of the late Leonard H. Church and Mary Church. Dad Church was half white and half native. He was Huron Band of Potawatomi and Grand River Band of Odawa. Mom Church was a full-blood Pokagon Band of Potawatomi. Casey has his roots from Dorr, Michigan, a small country town south of Grand Rapids, Michigan. He is a Northern traditional dancer and has mentored and brought several dancers in the powwow circle. He and I met when I was visiting my family in Albuquerque in 1989, and a year later we were married in 1990. He is the father of 4 daughters, Shondine, Alile, and our son-in-law, which we call son-in-love, Leon, and Nijoni Moon, and Desba, and her husband Dominic, and our son Bahojoni. And we have many other young people who call upon him as their father, their grandfather, and their advisor. Casey grew up in a large family with parents, 6 siblings, a lot of aunties and uncles, and lots of cousins as his playmates. He had several dogs that were his childhood companion. One of his favorite outdoor games back then was playing with his plastic army men out in the backwoods with his cousin. His first school was a 1-room schoolhouse, which eventually grew into a 2-room schoolhouse. Then later attended larger country schools and graduated from Hopkins High School in Hopkins, Michigan. Growing up, he encountered the racial divide between the whites and natives, the unkind remnants of racism, discrimination, and hurt. Back in the day, attending higher education school was not a strong point for him at that time. And I think sometimes fear can stifle us. He changed his mind and enlisted in the U.S. Marines in 1980 to 1986. In April 1988, which was previous to my meeting him, the Lord talked to him while attending a Michigan Indian mission meeting filled with elder ministers and asked, "Who will take their place?" Casey said, "I will," and then snapped out of it and realized everyone was looking at him sitting in the back. He shared what had happened, and they gathered around him and prayed. To enter the ministry for him also meant entering school again. And when you get a calling from the Lord, I believe the Lord will make your path straight. and help overcome the fear. Casey then earned an associate's degree, Bachelor's of Art in Cultural Anthropology, Master's of Art in Contextual Ministry, and a doctorate degree in Intercultural Studies from Fuller Seminary. He has written 3 books, 2 recently translated in Spanish and French, and is now working on a 4th book. I mention these other parts of his life because his story is a story of challenges, triumphs, and hard work. God refined Casey's ministry path by waking him up one night with a jolt in 1992. And since that time, Casey has placed an emphasis to reclaim the message that our unique individual Native identities were created from our Heavenly Father and from His perspective, and not from people's perspectives. So he's here this evening to share a message of hope, resiliency, and the love of God within the framework that expresses in a Native American contextual way of worship. So I'll pass it to Casey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get this camera?
You gotta hire her.
Hi.
As your
The PR, yeah, she's great. Yeah, I gotta meet this guy. Who is he? So great. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Laura. It's wonderful. Her and I just finished a whole long weekend going to San Diego, and then up to LA, and then we drove back from LA, made it as far as Flagstaff. Almost was going to visit Jean there for a little bit, but then we wanted to get home. So, but it was snowy and cold and windy, and so we played it safe, got a room, and then made it here this afternoon. Barely enough time to get over here and get set up for the meeting tonight. But I have so much to talk about, and I could go on and on and on sometimes, and sometimes I do just go on and on. But I wanted to decolonizing today's Native American church. And I just came back. The reason I was in Michigan for a couple of weeks, I did 2 programs up there for the church. It's called the Bradley Indian Mission, mostly a Potawatomi community. And the church that's there has been there almost 100 years now. And just to let them know, it looks the same. The congregation's about the same size as it was 100 years ago. And some of the things that I talk with them, I tell them very upfront that some of the things I'm going to be talking about is very unsettling. It might rub you the wrong way. I even said that that if you feel uncomfortable too much, that you can leave with maybe don't leave kicking and screaming, but walk out quietly. So I led into the service about how this church has been this way for so long, and there's a Native community around them that is just unreached because the 10 people that attend here are just not doing the outreach that we should be doing. I posted a little thing here just recently, and I got a comment back from one of my students, and it's a picture of one of the grand size cruise ships, like 13 decks high, and it's this huge big old thing, but there's just a few people on there that serve thousands of people that are attending that. And then that seems to be what the church is like sometimes. Is that there's thousands in attendance and just got a remnant of people that are making things happen and entertaining them mostly on there. And then I got this picture of a battleship below, and that I posted on there that this is how Good Medicine Way is. We are all hands on deck. And if you're familiar with the Navy term, it's like all hands on deck. Is that we're in the ministry, we're on the ground, we're doing the work. So we're like a battleship that everyone with Good Medicine Way is involved in some way in ministry. We're not on a cruise ship where we're being catered to and given a message and made feel good and watching a video and hearing a nice skit, and then we can hide in a big crowd. That's not us. We're a few people that make a lot happen. And Good Medicine Way is one of those things that makes it's going on really, really well. We're getting a lot of, we're not getting any news, but we're becoming quite a thing now because people want to hear what we have to say about the way we're doing ministry. So this church, they knew me. I grew up there, and when I told them, I says, I'm going to be very upfront and honest with you about the way things are here, and they, they were ready for it. And they used to have about 10 people, and the day that I came here, they had double that. They had 25 people come. So a lot of people that seen my announcement, they came on to hear what I had to say. But I really talked to them about this square box that we're sitting in. And the square box that we're sitting in is the church. And the pews that are there, the pulpits that are there, the arrangement of different things. There's a church bell. There's a steeple with a cross on top of it. And really, in a Native community, that was all transplanted into their world and life. I'm trying to blend some things here about colonization. So colonization is when an empire or so, they go in and they take over a people. They take over the people, they conquer the land, and the people become subservient to that conquering people, and then they change them. They take their resources, they take their people, they take their language, everything about them, and they change them. And in order to survive, the Native people have to go along with the program or die. This is survival. And it happened all around the world. So colonization happens that way. So they take the resources and they take the people and they lead into changing them, but it doesn't stop there. They take those resources and those people and that energy and they move on to another place, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and it just becomes bigger and bigger. So that little skit that I showed you about the two big size ships, the student that responded to me, she says, is that really the kind of image that you want to show to everybody? This military ship that's with colonization, with power, with guns, and all of that. The church has such a bad reputation with taking people over and doing these hard things and changing people and killing people. And all I did was write back, because I never get into arguments on anything that's posted. Mostly what I'll say, if it's really upsetting to me, I'll say, thank you for your comments. And if I say that to you, that means you really stuck me, and I don't. If I went on, we'd probably have a big argument. But what I wanted to say to her is, yes, I probably should have thought about it quite a bit differently when I posted this, 2 images of these 2 ships. You know what I should have said? I should have said, maybe I should have had a picture of the Jewish people killing and conquering the Canaanites. Because that's an image of colonization right there. And it's been part of our Christian upbringing, and then it went from there, it went on into the emperors, and then we know about the colonization of the Hebrew people as well in the Bible, and then it went on to Constantine. Constantine also, they colonized Christianity, but that was kind of a survival mechanism there. They were able to, they accepted Constantine's approval of Christianity. And a lot of it came from is that they didn't have to be killed anymore. They didn't have to be burned at the stake and all those kind of things, is that Constantine approved of them. And then that colonization led on to more and more all through Europe. So with just a little bit of history there, I could go deeper and deeper. There's a couple of professors that I follow and I learn from, William James Jennings. Just too much stuff there to go in too deep, and I don't want to take it that way. But in the church that I was at there, I really challenged them, is that, if you look at the Bible and you look at our church, none of the things that we do in our church right now are in the Bible, especially the artifacts that are in there. When we did church, when it moved up into Asia Minor, and that scripture alone, I wanted to let you see, that's an image of how colonization could have crept in and really changed the way that the missions went from there on out. So when the churches developed in Asia Minor, they were given a freedom to be who they were. They didn't have to follow the way of the Jewish law of Moses and be circumcised and do all the rituals. And that was the big part that the Pharisees wanted them to do. They wanted them to be like them as Christians. And that has carried over to into colonization. Whenever they went somewhere, they carried that in there, and people had to become like the conquering people. So when James, at the end of that chapter, said, we should not make it difficult for those that are coming to Christ. We should not make it difficult. But we should do these 4 things. And I think in every culture, too, there are probably 4 things or more things that need to be put aside in order so that the gospel can be presented really well. So when I was talking with the people, I'll go back to the church again, the Bradley Indian Mission. Many of my relatives are sitting in there. I tell them that, the pulpit, the way we do service, the clergy system, the laity system, the way we take offering, that is all part of a colonized way of doing church that is not a part of your native community. I asked them, I says, what would a native service look like here if we were to do church from our native cultural ways and just added Jesus to it? And they came up with ideas. Well, we would probably sit in a circle, right? Yes, we wouldn't sit in this square box right here. We would probably sit in a circle, and we would probably make it out of the logs and the sticks and the boughs and the saplings that are around us. We'd probably make a lodge like that. And they said, would we sit on pews? No, we would probably sitting all around, either on the ground or in small little shelves that are made out of wood. We'd be sitting in a big circle, and that's how we would do it. And who would do the talking? Well, everybody would do the talking. A lot of times it would be the storyteller be doing the talking, or an elder who had something to say. But if there were other people that had something to share in that service, they would ask them to come up and say, maybe it would have been my mom, or it might have been my dad who would have got up and shared. That's kind of the way that when in Asia Minor, when the churches developed, they had the freedom to create a service that looked like them. And that was what made the church grow and expand so much so is that there was freedom to create services that looked like the people. So as try to go through a couple of things that I don't want to, because a lot of you know that the way we contextualize our service here, everybody knows we got this really unique order of worship. And you know that we took this order of worship and we wanted to do something very different because we wanted to be really connect with the community, different than the order of worship that the churches do. Most every church around the world, starting with the Catholic Church that was developed 500 years ago, this order of worship that they developed is still the same order of worship with maybe a couple of variations here and there, but they still do that same order of worship in every church almost around the world, unless they're creative like we are, and then we add some things. But I said the order of worship, it's not in the Bible. Oh man, they got all in a flurry. Then they said, no, it's not in the Bible. It tells you that you should be orderly, yes, And it even says there should be freedom for the ministers to, one would have a word, one would have a song, one may have a poem, one may have, then there'd be listeners. There's a way of always giving into the service kind of uniquely as the personalities of the people. It wasn't governed by a clergy. And then I always pick on the pastors when I do this too, because, not in a fun way, because I know them. Laura and I, we just went, it was about a month ago, we went to Anaheim, and I was asked to come there and do a presentation similar to this one and talk to them about changing the way they do services so that they can be more fitting with the communities that they're around, rather than transplanting a white Western colonial way of doing service in their communities. Let the community develop something from within them that it reflects who they are. So that was really, it wasn't really tense, because some of them were doing it. Some of them were stretched a lot to say, well, we can do this kind of thing. But then there was one pastor there. He's a native pastor, but all this time, the last 7 years that I've known him, when he believes in doing contextual ministry, but when he does service, he wears a robe, a white robe, and when he gets up there, but they do tweak it a little bit, and they add some little flavors of, some native things. But they sit in pews facing forward. They do 2 pulpits. They do an organ, or sometimes they do an organ, or sometimes it's just a cappella that they're singing. But the songs that they're singing too, they're singing songs from hymnals, and a lot of times they're singing them by memory. Because that's a lot of the churches that I go to. You could say, who's got a song? And they'll say, oh, no, page 222. And they don't even have to open the book because they know every verse in the Bible. It's become so rote with them that going to church is just a thing they do. There isn't a deep connection to, I'm here to worship. Maybe some may have that, but it's become such a tradition that my grandparents did it, my parents did it, and I guess I got to do it too, that kind of feeling. And they didn't really input into that. It's that the people have become, when I say, kind of like numb participants in a service. They sit through the service, they sing some songs kind of rotely, they memorize and they know, and they do the Lord's Prayer. And a lot of times the Lord's Prayer, I know some of us, we can say it kind of rotely as well. It doesn't mean too much to us because, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. You can say the words, but there's nothing deep in it. So when we're doing the Lord's Prayer in sign language, and we're reading it from the First Nations version, there's a whole different feeling to that just seems to go into the heart of a Native person now, or any person that I'm finding out that is using the First Nations version. They're feeling it a little bit different because they've used the NIV or the RSV or the King James or New King James for so long that to hear it from a different expression is just, it's deeper to them. So our order of worship is just something that we created to be that kind of expression. And then I was talking about how the clergy, I says, we got a clergy here. And I asked her, what kind of education? He says, well, I had to get a Master's of Divinity. And a Master's of Divinity, I mean, you got a Master's in understanding the divine. I says, that's about as arrogant as you can get. It's like, no, ministers that go into church work, they should get a master's degree in a humble spirit, in a servant's heart, and not go in thinking that I know everything there is to know, but I go in with the knowledge that I can learn a lot from the people that are there. So, but if I was to go into the Methodist Church, become a clergy, they would not take the the doctoral degree that I have in missiology, they would want me to get a master's of divinity. Just to, I guess that's just kind of the standard for most people going into ministry. But there's, ever since I've been a minister, I've only been a local licensed minister, 2 years now. But I planted a church in Michigan, planted a church here, and doing ministry across all of Turtle Island too, being a minister. So the knowledge is good, but the heart for doing ministry is even better. So when I told them about clergy, I said, the clergy system's not even in the Bible. It was added. And they said, well, tell us about that. Well, it kind of went like this. When Paul was in Asia Minor, he got a vision of a man of Macedonia. And then so he crossed the Aegean Sea and he went into Greece. And he went to a place called the Areopagus. And that's where all the philosophers were. And the philosophers were teaching about all of all the idols that they had. And they had many, many idols. And then we all know that Paul says, well, you even got an idol to the unknown God here. Let me tell you about that unknown God. So as Christianity developed, as it moved in to that area, and philosophers, what do they like to do? Philosophers like to talk, right? Some of them like to hear themselves talk. And so as they became believers in Christ, and that same program that they had, the same rhetorical methods that they had, and argument and understanding, that all became a part of the way preaching came into being. So the clergy system slowly grew out of the philosophers taking over and being the presenters of the gospel. And that slowly filtered in to Europe, and then we get the clergy system there, where priests are the only ones that can read the Bible for a while, and then they're the only ones to speak. So that has slowly branched out into all of our churches as well. So the clergy system came in, and what it did is it made a divide between the clergy, those who are professional preachers, and then the laity. And that has been one of the most harmful things of the church that could be, because we are all called to be ministers. But the clergy system kind of divided us and put us into two different brackets, that these people can do ministry and they're professionals at it, and you got to sit and listen. And a lot of that has happened in the churches with the people in the pew. They sit there every week after week, but that's church to them. That becomes Christianity to them. But what we're looking at is everybody can have a deeper understanding of who they are in Christ and know that they can do things apart from the colonial way that Christianity has come into our world here. The Potawatomi people in particular, I'll just tell you just a quick story. The Potawatomi people in Michigan in the 1830s, the early 1830s, as the land was being ceded, what they did is, as the encroachment of settlers slowly started coming east, from the east and going into the west, they started coming into Michigan, and then the government in Washington, D.C., before it was a state, they started annexing the land, and they cut it into pieces, and then slowly they took it from the Native American people, and that's what colonialism does, is it takes your area away and isolates you and moves you out, kind of moves you out of your land. And one of the big reasons is that the Native American people in the land didn't know how to produce as much crops and use the land as good, and as I would say, the proper way to do it as the Europeans did. So the native people grew what they needed, and that was all they did. But because of capitalism and imperialism and all that, they had to use the land to develop lots of crops and lots of things, and wood from the lumber yards, and gold and minerals. Those had to be extracted from the ground in order to be used. But the native people weren't doing that, so they moved them out. They pushed them away. So as Michigan was being divided up and people were being moved more and more, in 1833, they kind of gave them a mandate. They said that we're going to round everyone up, all the native people that were in the land there, and we're going to move you because you're not using the land like we would like you to. We're going to move you out to Kansas. But there were several groups in the area that stood their ground, and one of them was my ancestor named Leopold Pokagon. He had it in him to see that, and one person even said he knew that there was this game to play in order to survive and stay in our land. He told these several family groups that start sending your kids to school, start farming, start wearing the clothes that the white people wear, and start going to their churches if they were in your area. And if they weren't in your area, Leopold Pokagon said to his family, I'm going to go to Detroit. I'm going to talk to the Catholic diocese. And the Catholic diocese said that they would send them a priest. So this was a big thing. They sent a priest to this community of these 6 family groups that were there, and they started a church, a Catholic church. So to playing that game of assimilating, so we had to assimilate and take on this colonial cultural way in order to survive. And that's some of my family's story. So those 6 families got to stay. All of the families around them that didn't go to church and play that game all got relocated to Kansas and then again into Oklahoma. So my heritage there is of this man who did something for his families to retain the land that they were in. And as a result, many of them came to faith. That was really good. So myself, I came to faith in a little church like that. And it wasn't for that little church and going there, I wouldn't have had my start. But here's the one thing about those little churches. Right now, they're not meeting the need of the entire community. If they have this desire to see more community of faith in the surrounding community, native community, it's just not there. But there's another whole story there about colonization there, that the understanding that we have to have numbers, we have to have people in the pews, we have to take in these offerings, we have to support ourselves and create this Christianity that looks like the church. But it really doesn't. It doesn't say in there that you have to meet at 10 o'clock on Sunday. Nowhere in the Bible it says you have to meet at 10 o'clock on Sunday. And one reason that we meet as Protestants, that we meet on 10 o'clock on Sunday, for one reason is that's when the farmers got done with their milking and their chores, and then they were free enough then to go on to church because they started early. Another reason that Protestants meet on Sunday is that they wanted to be different than the Jewish people who met on Saturday. And if you research it, you'll find out that is the only reason that we don't meet on Saturday, is that we wanted to be different than the Jewish people, and we meet on Sunday. So there is no particular day that is more holy than the other, because who knows the exact day when God created the world. We just know that there were these days, and they could have been 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 1,000,000 years, however long to create God's creation. So when I asked them, so if we were to, as a Native community, or what if we could create a ministry that looked more like the Native community, when do you meet as in your ceremonies? And one of the persons says, we only meet seasonally. And I says, well, that's good. That could be the only time that you have to have, quote, church. he could have church seasonally. Everybody comes together, and that's the main thing about coming together is it does say gather together. It doesn't say what day, what time, how many times a month. So that's not in the Bible either, but it does say meet regularly. So those kind of things kind of got under their skin a little bit. But here's the result of that. That church wants me to come back up several months in a row to help them develop something that looks like what we're doing. So in the future here, I'll be making a week. I'll be going up there on a Thursday and stay until Monday and helping that church develop something that looks more like the community as they grow. But the one thing that I've learned ever since I've been doing church planting is that you can't change that colonized church. It's too resistant to change. The older people love it. They love the music, they love the tradition, they love meeting there at 10 o'clock on Sunday. They love hearing a preacher, they love hearing the same songs over and over all the time. We don't take that away from them. But here's the thing, when I do speak in these churches, I see eyes light up of younger people, of some middle-aged people saying, I would like to be a part of something like that. And when I tell them this service won't change, but over here in the dining area, that's where we can do something different on another day. So what we got planned is that we're going to start a men's group up there with some of the traditional leaders and some of the community people. And it's only going to be for the men. So that for the men, everybody knows that men's group are the hardest thing to start. And I think we're going to call it duct tape can't fix our problems. Because men think everything can be fixed with duct tape. So duct tape can't fix our problems. We need each other. We need to get to a point where we are vulnerable with each other. And it takes time. Yeah, it takes a lot of time for men to get to that point to where they'll share the hurts and the problems and the things going on in their families. So, but that's what this community wants, and I'm going to be a part of making that happen up there. You know, we got something here. We got something with you that brings this safe place together to where we can share these kind of things. And maybe some of these words might touch you in a way that you'll say, I want to do something that is different as Good Medicine Way. I want to be more than just going to church on Sunday. I want to be more than find, what happens that way. I want to be more as something that God can use me in a powerful way. So I just wanted to, jump back and forth a little bit here because I just wanted to sprinkle in a couple different things about decolonizing. Because if you just even if you just Google a couple of things on decolonizing the church, there are a few good messages there, but some of them are way off. But there's a few professors on there that teach it in a very, very good way that you could understand it a little bit better. And I'd like to share with you, our order of worship has just been something that it's just we created. We put new wording to the things that are done in the service, and it's made it a better feel for us. And I pray that someday these chairs over here will be filled with people. And coming when we do our event, I think that's going to be the great time to have church, is that every time we do a big event, this place fills up. We're able to minister to them. Slowly, Laura and I are doing community things. Brian and Leah have connections that we're touching people all around the community that know us now. So it's those kind of things that we need to keep moving forward. So with that, I'll open it up. If you have any questions, because sometimes when you have a question, that leads me on rabbit trails that I just love to go on. So I'll leave it. Who's running us through the Q&R? Brian.
Yeah, that would be. But before we get into the questions and response, Casey covered a lot of ground. Definitely talked about some things that some of us might have personal histories where we've had difficulties in that. And then he also just brought up some challenging and even provocative things. So let's just take a moment to just kind of sit with that for a little bit, and I'll play some more flute, and let's just have a time just to kind of digest this meal that Casey's brought to us a little bit, and just kind of sit with it for a little bit, and then we'll get into some questions and responses.
Yeah. And if you want to know some practical things that you could do, because I've been, my degree, I chose to do a doctor of missiology because it is more practical. I mean, it's got, what do people say, it's got shoe leather. It's not ivory tower. It's right there on the ground, and let's actually figure this thing out. And I like that kind of theologizing.
All right, so yeah, if anybody's got questions or comments, there's a whole slew of stuff coming down the YouTube live stream as you were talking. Actually, because Eshe's watching the YouTube stream tonight, so he was dropping his perspective over there. But yeah, definitely a lot of identifying with the whole idea of just kind of the Eurocentric colonial model, just really stifling and limiting people in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you have a specific question on YouTube or Facebook, type it in, and if you got one here, just shout it out, and then if we get people, more than one person at a time who wants to share, just kind of raise your hand or whatever, and I'll try to keep track of who. And Christina's got her hand up. She'll do it right away.
Hi, Uncle Casey. Thanks for sharing with us. And I saw the pictures of you coming through our state, and I hope you enjoyed California, you and Auntie Laura. But yeah, I'm always just loving hearing, just even from spending time with you, how everything you do is deeply connected to being in Creator's presence, listening to Creator's voice. And sometimes you've gotten a dream or a moment in nature or an eagle passing over you, things like that. I just love to hear what have been some of those moments for you in your ministry when things have been hard, when things have been good, where you have just sensed Creator's voice on the journey. So, at any point in the journey, and at this season in your life, what are you excited about that Creator's doing, and any invitations?
Yeah, so you're in your early 30s, aren't you? Yeah, so, yeah, somewhere there. I I started when I was 28, and it the calling was exciting, but as I moved forward in it, it wasn't popular, but it was something that I had to do, because I know not to do it would have been disobedient, because I got this calling to make a difference. So I've had times when I've talked to people and just got shot down so bad, and some people would just say, "You're a heretic." I didn't even know what that meant back when I got back in my early calling. I says, "No, that you don't do that kind of church. You know, the way that we present church, this white Western way, is the only way that your native people can come to faith." And the more that I grew and the more that I understood, it just made such a difference that I was able to just change and grow with the flow. And then as more people came on, because I thought I was the only one doing this back in the day. And then in 1996, I heard about these guys that were going to the World Christian Gathering of Indigenous Peoples. And I go, whoa, they're talking about it. They're doing this on a bigger format. But our small group in Grand Rapids, we were doing the shoe leather. We started a service that was just totally out there, different, and we loved it, and people came. So what keeps me going is the good things that just keep coming. And they just always just keep coming. Just like the meeting I had in LA here, that our seminary is just taking off. We're going to be hiring some people to make the next growth stage. We have, Laura, how many students did Terry say we have? 100? How many students did Terry say we had? We had 100? Yeah, okay, yeah, there are about 100 students that we had. And, you know, right now, I don't know if you guys all heard it, but we got a homeless person banging on the window right now. It happens in this area. So, but I feel encouraged, Christina, that things are really, people like you and others are really going to see a difference. Go ahead, next one.
And so, kind of along that, one that came through the chat here, Katie asked, any wisdom about discerning when it's time to walk away from a ministry or a church that is just unwilling or just outright opposed to contextualization? I'll let you guess that.
Okay, just a minute. Hang on. Okay, hang on, everybody. Hang on, everybody.
I went to the Desert Club and tried there 30 minutes after they were closed.
Well, state his question again. Have any encouragement?
The question was, do you have any wisdom about discerning?
Oh, yeah.
It's time
When it's time to leave.
away from a ministry that's unwilling or opposed to decolonizing?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
should people persist?
Yeah. Well, I would not stay where I'm not being fed. That's myself and my family. And we actually did that at a church here in town. And we were being ministered to, and things just didn't fit Laura and I very, very right. I'll just share with you, in our native way, in the Navajo way, you don't talk about death. even though, in Christianity, you always got to prepare yourself for death. That's just the thing. Is that, is your heart right? Are you ready to meet your maker tonight? That kind of thing. If you're not sure, let's make sure we can take care of that tonight. And you can do the sinner's prayer, and then you'll have your place in heaven. But in the Navajo way, how do you present death to them is because you don't talk about death. So how do you lead them into a life of Christ? It's that you lead it by your example of being kind of like I just seen the Salvation Army. Do all the good that you can. That was one way. That's one of their posters. Just do good among all that you can, because you might be doing it to Jesus himself. You might be doing it to angels who've been ministered to. But that was so hard. And when that pastor started doing a whole series on death and dying, we made a break. And it wasn't for us. So that was really the beginning of us starting an outreach in Albuquerque. We made a break. We took our family, because there's 6 of us. So we took our family. And then Bahujoni came along, so we had our 7. So we started meeting in a park. And we started doing church the way that we felt from our indigenous way, people, this is how we should meet. So that was the beginning point. But I have counseled people who had really hard times in their churches. And I said that there are many, many other places to go. But what really keeps people from moving on is that they have family there. Family and friends that just, they don't want to leave. But your spiritual growth is very important for your own self. So there are very good like-minded churches that you could probably find around. I know there are not many like ours. And that's what's good about this Good Medicine Way program, is that we're here for you, we love you. It's a place where you can have a safe place to share your thoughts and encouragement, and maybe God will open a door for you.
Looks like Helen, right?
Yeah, all right, Helen, get your hand up. What do you got?
Helen, right.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, I mentioned in the comments, I really like the flute music that you have so that we can process it. The only equivalent I could think in a Western situation is the Jeopardy music. And that always just made me nervous, like, oh, I've got to think of something right now, and it better be brilliant, it better be right. But instead, it gives you time to digest what was said, to think about it, to let it sink in. I think that's a good improvement. And the second thing was, my mom studied liturgy when she was in school, and she came away with understanding that, yes, she loved the liturgy, but she said there's a lot more freedom in it than you might think. The biblical commands were basically that we need to pray, we need to have teaching, we need to have praise time, but it didn't say you have to do this before another thing. It didn't say you have to do this at a certain time. And so she said she loved the program and she loved the liturgy, but she sometimes felt kind of like the heretic of the program, saying like, but this isn't the only way you can do it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't impress God that you're doing it in one cultural way over another, because it's still human made. So
yes,
yeah.
it's all going to be different. And that's the one of the professors that I had, he passed on Paul Hebert. He says God will not fully be known until he's fully known in every culture and expressed in every culture. Because when I do my talk, I really share at the very beginning that God created us, and we went through Babel, and we got separated and around the world, and we were given different languages for a purpose, so that we wouldn't come back to this one language, one way of doing it. And what has Christianity done to us? God is speaking English, and God is doing church in one particular way, going back to that. So when we expand ourselves and we get creative in every dimension, every cultural group around the world, and we create something, I'd love to get, maybe someday I could give, it might be a longer program, but do it here, but give my talk that I do as the movement of Christian history from Ur the Chaldees until it crosses from England on into North America. I talk about how Christianity has changed and adapted pagan rituals as their Christian expressions from the time of Ur the Chaldees. When Abraham left Ur the Chaldees, the first time he prayed, do you think that did he go into a Catholic confession closet? No, that wasn't there. Did he go to the altar and bend down on a knee and say the sinner's prayer? No, none of that existed. He prayed in a way that was from Ur, that he learned how to pray, but he redirected his allegiance to pray now to God Most High rather than small g God. So that's where our Christian history begins. So we start moving from there, and then I take you on a journey to Haran, take you down to Egypt, take you into Sinai, take you back across to Mesopotamia, and then up through Asia Minor, and then as the church and as Christianity grows through Europe, because that is basically our Christian history. We don't get the Christian history that Vince Bantu gives us. Vince Bantu gives us the Christian history of the trajectory of the Northeast, into Russia, into India, and into Africa. He tells us that Christian history. But the only one that we're ever taught is the white Western Christian history that leads into Europe's understanding. So I can give that someday in the future here. So there's lots of ways to express ourselves. I know I like being creative and expressing, like I've done sweat lodge now for 25 years now. I started using the pipe about that same time in expressions of my faith, and also in ceremony, in Christian weddings, in believers' funerals. I've done those things, singing with drum groups and raising our family all to be traditional dancers and believers in Jesus. So my kids, they don't see any problem with being who they are and having a faith in Christ. But they meet people all around the North America here that do have that problem. That my parents say you can't do feathers, you can't do drum, you can't do any of that. But my parents say, they say, no, we've figured that out. My dad, they would say, my dad teaches this. And he shows people that you can be that way. So, take another question.
All right. Any other questions out there?
I have others, but I'd like somebody else to have a turn.
Sure.
I have a couple of comments.
Sure.
All right.
One of the things is when I've spoken to churches and tried to define colonization, sometimes the typical response is, and this is even in the classroom too, when I taught undergrad, what's wrong with that?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a difficult barrier to break through. And I've been thinking about that for a long time, because people who are in positions of power think that colonization is wonderful. That's what they're supposed to do. That's success for them. But when anyone in the church, like if you take the longest march or the Trail of Tears, what that did was it created widows and orphans. And what we're supposed to do in the church is to care for the widows and the orphans. And when people in churches today exclude Native people or other people from their churches, unless they look like them and act like them, they're creating orphans in another way. They're saying you don't belong here unless you drastically change who you are and what you do. So it's something that I'm terribly concerned about. And so it caused me to think about what a lot of churches want to do today is reconciliation. And I've come to believe that speaking for myself, I can't teach a church how to engage in reconciliation. That's something that each individual has to do. They have to reconcile with Creator themselves. And that could take a long time. So there isn't going to be one conference that's going to make that happen. There isn't going to be one book with a bunch of different points in it that's going to make that happen. It's going to be a one-on-one process that happens. So I guess, as I'm talking through this, being an encourager of that process, of people getting to know who Creator is and who they are in Creator, is, I don't want to say a better way to go. It's another choice. It's another path to take for some people, because if it's going to be a one size fits all, then it's going to be something that falls short for the majority of the people in the room. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about lately. And the decolonization process is going to look different for each person. And it's necessary and it's not linear. So that's all I wanted to say.
And colonization is not just a Christian thing. Colonization is somebody going in and taking over your country and displacing you and using your resources and then taking it to the next country and doing it again. But then there's the decolonizing of theology. Is that basically what Nate's is all about? Is that we're decolonizing the way that white Western Christianity has said that we're it. Yeah, we know how to do it right, and everyone else is subservient to us. There's no other place around that can say that your Christianity and you're developing your theology like what we're developing. Nate's indigenous perspective on theology, Christian theology, it doesn't fit with the white Western, and it doesn't have to, because you can have a white Western theology, you can have an African theology, you can have Filipino theology of Christianity. Every one of them has the same freedom that Europe did to create that Christian theology as anyone else. You just can't say that yours is predominant over any others.
Exactly. And I was thinking, Casey, every tribe and tongue and nation is pretty important in the Bible. You know, and how do we know that there's an every tribe and tongue and nation? Probably because they live in different places, they look different from each other, their language is different from each other, and the way they worship and know Creator is different from each other. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how we were created to be, different from each other. But,
Sure.
you know, it's that loving each other part that just seems to be a little bit sticky.
Yeah, well, you shared something that was very heartfelt here when you weren't accepted at your church for wearing your regalia. And that should not even be a problem, because people come in there dressed so weird sometimes, and they're not looked down upon. But as soon as we come in our cultural artifacts and regalia, then it's a total different thing, because they've been told that any other culture except ours, it has to be wrong. And then especially Native Americans, we were demonized long ago to know that we were wrong. And that was a decolonizing process to show that we cannot be civilized. And so the boarding schools were a way to filter us in, to take that away from us. And the other thing, the church, even the church today is still, that's one thing I told him, I says, you're still being decolonized in this white Western church with all these Indians in it. You're still sitting in a white Western way that they want you to still become white. And boy, that some spark started going then, because they says, I guess we are. We're sitting here in something that isn't of us, but it's something that we adapted. And sometimes Native Americans, we have to be a part of colonization in order to survive. So my family, we went through that process of changing our name from the word Pokagon, our namesake, to changing our name to Stevens, so that we would fit better within the cultural world that we're moving into. And it's just a familial thing that parents want a better life for their children. So when my parents got beat up and got treated badly, they didn't want their kids to get it. So we'll make the best world for them that they can live in. But when it got to me, it's like, no, I'm not changing that way. I'm going to be different as much as I can, because I can be different and still believe in Jesus as my Savior.
Sure, you can make a comment, but I thought it was funny. Casey said, like, yeah, you could show up in your big purple hat with peacock feathers,
Yeah.
and everyone's
Oh,
fine.
yeah.
But you put a few eagle feathers on your regalia, and suddenly, no,
Oh,
you
yeah,
can't do that.
so they got escorting you out the door.
Yeah.
Well, when Kimberly was talking about the big repentance gatherings that some denominations have had and so forth, just the thought came to me, like, did those churches ever actually ask indigenous people, we kind of have these guilty feelings and we're thinking of doing this kind of a gathering. Do you think this is a good idea? Did they ever ask native indigenous people, like?
Yeah, they do. I got a recording of a program here done in Albuquerque. Richard Twist was there, Tom Claus was there, John Lanza, who's now retired now, but still around. They were all there, and it was through a Promise Keepers program, and they were trying to make repentance and reconciliation with Native Americans. So they invited these, some of the top figures in Native America at the time to be a part of that. But you can't just take a few remnants of people and apologize for the whole nations and all, 570 some nations that are here. You can't do it for every one of them. And in here, let's get to the word reconciliation, is that the word reconciliation implies that at one time there was good relations. So when you're reconciliating, you're getting back to the good relations that were never there. So why do you use the word? You got to get back to, let's have good relations now moving forward and not do reconciliation, because it doesn't make sense to have a reconciliation when you never had good relations with us.
Well, and the other thing is, when you are trying to have reconciliation, the abused party is the one that needs to set the terms. So,
Yeah.
they didn't even ask the natives.
Yeah. We went through that in the 90s. There were reconciliation meetings happening all around with different churches, and they get some representative to come, some native person, and then sometimes they'd have big crying spells and hugging spells, and then that would be it.
All right, so it looks like Helen's got another question, and then after Helen will be Lisa. So Helen, then Lisa. Go ahead, Helen.
Go ahead.
Okay, actually, I think it's a comment. I've been following this and some of this in the chat. I was thinking what you were describing, decolonization and like the colonization through churches. I agree, it is colonization to take one cultural identity and impose it on others, and with the express purpose of oppression. But it's also something else. It's idolatry. If you are creating God in the image of one people and not as God truly is, that's idolatry. And then you're imposing it on others. There are so many things wrong with it. I think we could spend all night to find, it fits this bad category, it fits that bad category and stuff. But I wonder how many people really want to think about idolatry outside of graven images or statues. That, for some people, the television is their idol and their God, but it is. That was basically what I wanted to say.
Well, I'll take that another step here, because in these churches that I go to and that invite me, I don't go to places that don't invite me or have a problem with it. And I'm not lack for places to go, because I'm always, if you follow me, I'm always on the road somewhere. But this church that I was just up in Michigan, I says, you don't want to change this service in here with the pews. No, you don't want to change the organ that's over there, or the piano here, or the pulpit, or anything of there. You don't want to change. What you created is you create all of that as an idol that is bad. You're putting too much emphasis on all of those things in there above reaching out beyond the doors to be something to the world. You create, you don't want to change that mindset that you do there. You created that idolatry in that. And that really spoke to a lot of them at that time. And every time I speak, it's always a little bit different. And I'm not the greatest speaker, but what I do is I don't know, the older I get, the thinner my filter gets. So some of you understand that. But I say it because if we really believe that time is short, why are we walking on eggshells? We got to do the work. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, Brother Casey. How are you tonight?
Oh, okay.
I
You ready?
just so enjoy coming when I can be here, and I just wanted to share. I was in Michigan, and I went to the inner city church, and they allowed many indigenous people to bring their regalia, to sing their songs. And I got a chance to play piano, and one gentleman got up and he started doing Indian hand signals, Chippewa signals, and I just fell in love. And I mean in a spiritual way, that I felt such a bond that between the music and him doing his native hand signals, that it changed my view of church forever. I said, this is what church should be like, where everyone can come and express themselves and be accepted and be loved. God is not a God of putting people in the box. God is as big as we let him be. And I love what you're doing. I love just being here with all of you and knowing that we are all part of his family. He loves all of us, whether we have feathers or we sing or we beat a drum or we dance. Praise the Lord.
Well, I think some of that Grand Rapids thing that's happening, because we did this in 1996, and we had, roughly between 55 and 60 people come from around the community. So they just came from a smattering of all different denominations too, because they wanted something different. And so now all of those people have filtered out over these years, and they've taught their family and some of their kids, and some of these churches around there are more accepting now. And you mentioned, doing things in this box. I tell a little story about Jesus getting a Christmas gift from God, and it's a box. And it's what it is it's a small little church with a roof, with a steeple, with a cross, and a little bell inside there. And Jesus says to God, his Father, this is really nice, Father, but I just can't get it out of the box. We can't get the church out of the box because we stick ourselves there. And what I like to see, something, a kind of an explanation of the kind of ministry that I do is I do ministry as if there is no box at all. Yeah, you're not confined to anything except Jesus Christ and him crucified, and just like Paul said, preach that and teach that. And so ministry to me there exists as just a no box at all. So if we got to do something, I tell people, let's do a sweat lodge service. Let's do a baptism in there. What I do now is I do the communion service in a sweat lodge at the last round. So people say, no, you can't do that kind of thing. Why not? That's where we pray. So a lot of good things. And in Winnipeg, if you're going to go to Winnipeg this coming summer here to our NATE Symposium, I just got official word that we are going to have Sweat Lodge. And I think that's why they invited my wife, because and if you come, she'll do a woman's sweat. And myself and Terry LeBlanc will do a men's sweat. So looking forward to that. Christian, it will be playing to Jesus Christ in there too. So some people say you can't do that. Well, just watch me. All right, folks, very good.
All right, last call for questions or comments.
Yep, up there.
Go ahead, Diane.
Just a little quickie. Thank you, Casey, so much. That was beautiful. Lot to think about for me. Are ribbon skirts appropriate up there in Potawatomi, up in your area of the woods?
Yeah, that's where they come. Basically, where they come from.
Maybe Laura can go with you and make ribbon skirts up there.
Yeah, it's pretty common. It's pretty common, and ladies are starting to wear them everywhere. Yeah, as you know, my family alone. When my niece just got a job as a teacher at Grand Valley State, and she teaches classes in early child development, and because her degree and all, but she wears a ribbon skirt almost every day that she goes to work.
Well, don't men have ribbon shirts as well?
Yes. Most of the time we wear those, mostly at bigger functions and that. But most of the time you'll see like Terry and I, you'll never see a suit coat on us. Ever. Ever. That's yeah. The only time you see a suit coat on me is when I took a picture in one, because I wanted to show what I have an image of me. Half me is my regalia, and the other half of me is with a suit coat, and just showing that it's the same person preaching the same gospel. And I did it because in my early years, I really didn't wear a suit, but I dressed nice. But I used to be a revival speaker at the local outdoor revivals in Michigan. Me and a couple of guys were these young preachers, and so I used to preach a higher, fire and brimstone kind of things, come to turn or burn kind of thing. Yeah. I started off that way, and then God said, "Wake up, boy!" That's when I got my call to do more contextual ministry. Well, good. Thank you all.
All right, Andrew.
Andrew.
Hey, real quick question, Uncle Casey. Thanks for sharing. And maybe this already got answered, as I join around 6 coming from work. Are we going to do a sweat at the upcoming Wachoni?
Oh yeah. Yep. This coming year we will, because we didn't do it last year because COVID was too high at the time. So now with everything really better, we can. And if you feel comfortable, you can still wear a mask in there, but we'll do sweat, and then also at Winnipeg at the NATE Symposium, we'll be doing sweats there as well. So yeah, come prepared. Start conditioning yourself. Go to the sauna for a few times. Yeah, we turn it up hot. So I do a beginner's one too. Yeah. So if you're a beginner, I do a nice easy one. Yeah. It's survivable. Very good, folks. Thank you so much for tonight. It was wonderful. Just let you know you're loved.
Yes, thank you so much, Casey. That was such great words, and I just really appreciate what you had to share, and even giving us a little bit of history. So that was really great to hear. You're very awesome. Creator's hand truly is on your life, and I love that. All right, so now we're gonna hand it over to the Grovers for the famous Gonoronqua song. So go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, and I think everybody here is pretty familiar with the song, so
everybody sing.
I won't share the lyrics so we can all see each other and singing and dancing and all that kind of stuff. So all right, here we go.
Yeah, Andrew, you better start dancing. Start dancing.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see that.
You come to Wachoni Family Camp, you'll actually do these round dances, and also in Winnipeg as well. So come on.
Thank you, Good Medicine Way. Thank you, Grovers and Casey. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. It was a really great night to see everybody here. So thank you. Aho. Thank you, everybody. All right. So I'm going to hand it over to Christina Quintanilla for our send-off blessing. Go ahead. Take it away, Christina.
Awesome. If you'll just join me in prayer in whatever way feels the most comfortable for you. Creator, we just thank you for this time together. We thank you for these sacred spaces that we can gather as a community. We thank you for the gift of Uncle Casey's life, of Auntie Laura's life, of their faithfulness in ministry, of their faithfulness to love the community, to seek Indigenous thriving and everything that they do. Thank you, Lord, for those like them that have gone before us to create these spaces. We bless them. We bless them for their faithfulness. We bless Uncle Casey in every part of his life, everywhere that he steps his feet. We bless Auntie Laura as she leads in the community, everywhere that her feet steps, everything that her hands touch, including her beadwork, including her ribbon skirt making and teaching the community. We thank you for the gift to just sit at their feet, to learn from them, God. Would you bless them? And I pray for everyone here in the Good Medicine Way community. Lord, would you bless our hands and feet as we go into our communities, in our cities, in our neighborhoods, to just out in the streets out, Lord Jesus, to the indigenous communities where we're a part of across the nation. Would we be good medicine to our neighbors? Would you bless us to be a blessing? Would you give us what we need in order, Lord, to bless those around us, Lord? We thank you, God, that you use everyday people like us. And we thank you for the example of the church family. We thank you, God, and I just bless all of you to be good medicine in your communities. Amen.
All right.
Sorry if that was the longest prayer ever. I was like,
It was just right.
Everybody will see you here in 1 week when Brother Namar Newsom will bring us some good words.
Yes. All right, all.
All right, relatives. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.